Hello everybody and welcome to my educational video discussing not only education but the important elements that what makes education profitable, what makes education successful, how we help our children achieve using our educational models and designs. This is such a critical video because I'm dialing in on this video specifically about leadership and management. And I have people constantly getting confused, not really understanding that although most educational units, are of a not-for-profit status, which means we're not walking away making billions of dollars, even though there are for-profit educational designs, programs, structures, companies, whatever. In our traditional, typical educational design, we are still running a business. We are still needing to be, in a sense, profitable. So what does that mean? Well, in education, we have a hierarchy that starts with leadership and works its way to management. Just like you have a head coach, and then you have people who are the heads of discipline of maybe the offense and defense. So we call them coordinators, sometimes supervisors. We have the same thing in education, and it could be the same thing if we have a CEO of a company, and then we have department heads. So when we're discussing education, when we're thinking about where education is going, when we talk about the efficacy, the strength, and the success of an educational structure or unit, we really have to think about the leadership and how education is facilitated, starting with the visionary and working our way down. Leaders are visionaries, whether we're talking about the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, or the principal of a school. We are talking about the visionary, the leader, the person who is the inspirer that really pumps us up and really allows us to feel the success, to feel the power in changing, developing people's lives. If we don't have leadership with great vision, then we have a 7:30 to 3 o'clock job that we have to tolerate every day. And with great leaders comes very powerful, inspired people. Why are they inspired? Because they are trying to meet the inspiration or the vision of their leader. And this gets difficult, everybody. Not everyone is meant to be a leader. So you have to continue to remind yourself, because someone was a great teacher or maybe a great guidance counselor, then became a fantastic curriculum supervisor, and then eventually became a wonderful principal or director of special education, does not mean that this person will be the greatest leader of a school or school district. We have to always find the right people. So leaders, when you're watching this, when you are that department head, or you are that, depending on the size of your school, or you're the principal of that school, or you are the superintendent, if you will, when we're talking about leadership, we're talking about your vision. And you have to share your vision to your team of people who are going to carry out your vision, or what we also call your mission. That is critical, that you are able to translate what is in your head as your vision or your mission and inspire people to run in their attempt to achieve whatever it is that is your hope for achievement. Those people who are going to do that are called managers. Now in schools, it could be the curriculum supervisor, could be a director, it could be a manager of something, but all those managers are going to run the logistics. They're going to manage the process to get to you, leader, to your mission or your vision, country, and to other countries. And I have studied other countries for years. I mean, Finland being one of the coolest, greatest school systems on the planet, but I'm very fascinated by the education in all the Asian countries. I even, for my PhD, studied in Jamaica, just understanding the differences in culture, the difference in leadership, the difference in the efficacy of what we build to groom our developing youth to have greater frontal lobes so they can learn to be independent as they get older, and to be people who set goals and learn to be independent to achieve those very specific goals, which is done marvelously through education. Why? Because educators spend more time with children in a day's time than their own parents do. So we are huge influencers to our developing youth. But the leader comes number one. Leadership is so critical because even leaders have to be trained. Think about that. With leaders, how many leaders have been trained in leadership? I can tell you that just because a person was a great NFL football player doesn't mean that that person will be a great NFL coach. Not everyone has the ability to be a leader of a group of people, developing a pathway to get them to the goal. The goals must be the same between or among the leader and the manager, the leader and the managers. The managers are facilitating the process with all the people that the managers manage to get those people, which would be teachers, guidance counselors, child study team members, whatever, to get those people to follow the path to the leader's vision. So imagine if you don't have a plan, where's everyone going? And if we don't have a definition of what that vision looks like, what direction is everyone pointing to? That means that if we don't have that vision, the managers don't know where they're guiding all their disciples, the people below them, to try to meet some sort of defined or undefined mission statement. So leaders, first of all, we all need training in leadership. Number one. Number two, we have to make sure that they're the right leaders. You know, your school's climate, your district's climate, your culture really have a lot to do with the leader's ability to guide and navigate the vision through the managers in order to meet whatever that plan or expectation is. So then we also have to be able to communicate that plan. And there's an old saying that if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So leaders, training on leadership becomes paramount, becomes one of your greatest goals. I'm going to tell you that I've done over 3,000 educational trainings in my career. And among those 3,000 educational trainings, commonly the leaders are either not there or they're not there for the whole training. So they miss out on what everyone's being trained on. And so I'm always having to reach out to leaders saying, hey, I want to make sure that I'm training your people on the right training content. Like, what if my principles don't align with yours? That's very important because I'm not trying to sway or influence the managers or the disciples of the managers who are running the logistics to get to a certain direction when the direction's not defined, or I come in with a different philosophy that defies that direction. That could destroy the program. We can't have that. And it's not anyone's fault other than the leader. The leader's got to make sure that everyone is congruent with whatever the leader's vision is. Now, the managers also need training. They should be trained on the leader's vision. Training is not only critical, but it can be fatal if those trainings don't happen. We can't assume through basic conversation that our managers know exactly what to do. Now, commonly leaders will argue with me and say, but I hired them because they are great leaders. But think about it. If you're working for Apple and you have great business background, don't you need a ridiculous amount of training on Apple product, Apple vision, Apple team management, Apple's future, Apple's trajectory, the benchmarks that measure whether you're on track or off track to meet Apple's goals? There is no difference in education. It is the same. And very commonly, I'm in rescuing public and private schools all over the nation of the United States on poor leadership, poor management, which really, as much as we're adults and we can suffer, the people that suffer the most are really the children. Now, managers, although they manage the logistics to meet the leader's vision if done correctly, but they also have to be good communicators. They have to be good multitaskers. So what does that mean? So when we're hiring them, we have to make sure that they have those tools right off the bat. They have to be people who can break down the leader's long-term goals and make them into short-term goals. We call that goal setting by backward design. Now we do that with school curriculum, but most people buy the curriculums that are already goal set with a backward design. And those designs are benchmarks that allow us to know if the children are making reasonable or meaningful progress along the way. As leaders, for our managers, we should be making sure that the managers along the way are meeting the benchmarks. If not, as leaders, we are air traffic controllers and the managers of our departments are airplane pilots, and we're not giving them direction, letting them know what the benchmarks are and if they're on track or off track in order to land the plane at the expected time. In other words, they're in order to make sure that they meet the achievement goals of our vision as leaders at the expected time. This is so critical, and it's so often just either misunderstood or it's just misinterpreted. I'm going to even say that it's just irresponsibly handled or managed, and it's very, very easy to prevent. And it can be restored, because I do that for a living. I go in and I restructure schools and I rebuild them, and I have to start from the top and work my way down. But for the purpose of this video, I want everyone to know, if you're a leader, you have to know what your vision is, and you have to be a good communicator of that vision. Number one, your mission. Your vision and your mission don't always have to be the same thing. You may have a mission of educating all the kids in this district, but your vision is that all the kids would go off to college. So you have to define both of those, and what are your principles as leaders to get there, and what does that look like? And you have to be able to communicate that with your staff. Once it's communicated, you have to make sure all your staff are on board. And those who are not on board have to become on board. As a leader, you have to either be able to inspire them or hold them accountable to be on board. And then we have to train them on your vision. You have to train them. We can't assume because they have some leadership quality that they all of a sudden know exactly what's in your head. Then you have to be able to measure that to make sure they're on track. And then ultimately, we want to make sure that we have team camaraderie to celebrate our success along the way to meet the leader's vision. What does that mean? Too often, we're only meeting as groups when there's a problem. Leaders are always great in celebrating when the team is meeting the leader's benchmarks to get to the leader's goals, to meet their mission statement, which will ultimately meet their vision. If we're not celebrating, what the heck are we doing? Isn't that what we do with kids? Student of the month, and who, getting an A with a star and, points, and we got to do that with our staff. Our staff need that. They need to thrive. And leaders, on my ending here, my closing, we give all the credit, leaders, to our managers and to those running our logistics who have allowed us as leaders to meet our vision. Another way of saying that is we never take credit for it, because the people who are running, these managers who are running the logistics and running the process for us, are actually achieving our goals as leaders. We give them the credit. At the same time, if we didn't lead very well and our managers didn't do a great job in meeting our goals, our benchmarks, and getting to our vision, we take full responsibility for that, because that's what effective leaders do. I hope this is very helpful for you, and I'm certainly not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. I want our educational system to thrive for our children, not where they can barely survive for our children. And I really believe that the greatest empire, the greatest system of care, the greatest influence of our children are our school systems. Thank you.